Stay tuned till the end, because I'll be covering how the reproductive system works, the most common reproductive disorders, and most importantly, the fruits, vegetables, and nuts that may naturally support reproductive health, along with ancient healing traditions, and the global impact of reproductive disease. The reproductive system is not one organ, it is a coordinated network. In biological terms, the primary reproductive organs are the ovaries and testes, and their core tasks are to produce gametes, eggs, and sperm, and the hormones that regulate sexual development and reproductive function. In women, this system also supports menstruation, ovulation, fertilization, and the development of pregnancy. In men, the testes make and store sperm, which are then delivered through the reproductive tract. That means reproductive health is not just about having children. It is also about hormone balance, menstrual health, sexual function, pelvic health, sperm quality, fertility, and the body's ability to protect this system from inflammation, infection, and long-term damage. And globally, the burden is enormous. WHO estimates that about 1 in 6 people of reproductive age experience infertility in their lifetime. Before we go deeper, one important truth: natural support is not the same as a cure. Diet, exercise, sleep, weight stability, stress reduction, and supportive traditional practices may help reproductive health, but they do not replace antibiotics for infection, hormonal treatment when needed, fertility care, surgery, cancer treatment, or emergency obstetric care. The strongest evidence supports healthy patterns, not miracle foods or miracle herbs. Part 1. What the reproductive system actually does. At its most basic level, the reproductive system creates and transports gametes and produces hormones. But in reality, it does much more than that. It helps regulate puberty, sexual maturation, menstrual cycles, ovulation, sperm production, fertilization, implantation, pregnancy, and birth. It is also deeply connected to the endocrine system, the brain, metabolism, blood flow, and emotional well-being. When reproductive health is disturbed, the effects often extend far beyond the pelvis. In women, the ovaries mature eggs and produce hormones such as estrogen and progesterone. The uterus supports implantation and pregnancy, while the rest of the reproductive tract helps coordinate menstruation, sperm transport, and fertilization. In men, the testes produce sperm and testosterone, and the reproductive tract stores, transports, and ejaculates sperm. Both systems rely on finely tuned hormonal signaling, which is one reason reproductive health can be so sensitive to stress, inflammation, metabolic dysfunction, and age. This is why reproductive dysfunction can show up in many different ways: irregular periods, pelvic pain, erectile difficulty, low libido, poor sperm quality, infertility, recurrent, pregnancy loss, painful sex, abnormal bleeding, or complications in pregnancy and childbirth. The reproductive system is a highly coordinated biological orchestra. When one section goes out of rhythm, the whole experience of health can change. Part 2. Common reproductive diseases and disorders. One of the most important female reproductive disorders is polycystic ovary syndrome, or PCOS. WHO says PCOS affects an estimated 10 to 13% of reproductive aged women, that up to 70% may be undiagnosed, and that it is the most common cause of anovulation and a leading cause of infertility worldwide. PCOS is not just a fertility issue, it is also tied to menstrual irregularity, higher androgen levels, acne, excess hair growth, and metabolic problems. Another major condition is endometriosis. WHO estimates that it affects about 10% of reproductive age women, or roughly 190 million people worldwide. It can cause severe period pain, chronic pelvic pain, heavy bleeding, bloating, pain with sex, and infertility. Endometriosis is especially important because it is common, often dismissed, and often diagnosed late. Then there's infertility itself. WHO defines infertility as a disease of the male or female reproductive system and estimates that roughly 1 in 6 people experience it in their lifetime. In the male reproductive system, infertility is most commonly linked to problems with semen ejection, low sperm numbers, or abnormal sperm movement and shape. Nick HD also notes that in about half of male infertility cases, the exact cause cannot be determined. We also have to talk about sexually transmitted infections. WHO reports that more than 1 million curable STIs are acquired every day worldwide, and in 2020 there were an estimated 374 million new infections with chlamydia, gonorrhea, syphilis, or trichomoniasis alone. These infections matter not only because of immediate symptoms, but because they can also affect fertility, pregnancy outcomes, and long-term reproductive health. And then there is cervical cancer, one of the clearest examples of how reproductive disease overlaps with infection, prevention, and inequality. WHO states that cervical cancer is the 4th most common cancer in women globally. with around 660,000 new cases and about 350,000 deaths in 2022. It is largely preventable through HPV vaccination and screening, yet the highest burdens remain in low and middle-income countries, where access to prevention and treatment is weaker. Part 3. Natural support. What actually helps? This is where many videos become misleading. They treat reproductive health like it can be fixed by one tea, one berry, or one supplement. But the stronger evidence says something more sophisticated. The best nutritional support for reproductive health comes from overall dietary patterns, especially Mediterranean-style patterns rich in fruits, vegetables, legumes, whole grains, nuts, and healthy fats. Systematic reviews and meta-analyses suggest that higher adherence to this kind of diet is associated with better fertility-related outcomes, while more Western-style patterns appear less favorable. That does not mean food can cure infertility. It means food can change the biological environment in which reproduction is trying to happen. Reproductive tissues are sensitive to oxidative stress, inflammation, vascular health, and metabolic dysfunction. Male reproductive function in particular is vulnerable to oxidative stress, which can impair sperm count, motility, morphology, and DNA integrity. Oxidative stress also plays an important role in female reproductive processes such as ovulation, fertilization, and implantation. So the real natural healing message is not magic, it is terrain. A healthier diet may help create a better reproductive terrain. Calmer inflammation, steadier metabolism, improved nutrient status, and better support for hormone and vascular function. That is a much more honest and much more useful way to think about food and fertility. Part 4. Fruits, vegetables, and nuts that may support reproductive health. Let's come to the practical food part. Fruits, berries are a sensible inclusion because they are rich in polyphenols and other antioxidant compounds. The evidence is stronger for antioxidant-rich dietary patterns than for any single fruit, but berries fit well into that pattern. Since oxidative stress can damage sperm and can also interfere with key female reproductive processes, polyphenol-rich fruits are a reasonable choice within a fertility-supportive diet. Citrus fruits also make sense, not because they are miracle foods, but because they contribute vitamin C and natural folate. Folate matters in reproductive health and preconception care, and natural food sources include dark leafy greens and citrus fruits. Evidence also links folate status to reproductive outcomes, especially in women preparing for conception and assisted reproduction. Vegetables, leafy greens such as spinach, kale, and other dark green vegetables are among the most practical choices because they provide folate and fit the dietary patterns most often linked with better reproductive outcomes. They are especially relevant before conception, when folate status matters for both fertility-related outcomes and healthy early pregnancy. Cruciferous vegetables, such as broccoli, cabbage, and Brussels sprouts fit the same protective pattern. The point here is not that broccoli directly boosts fertility, but that vegetable-rich diets are consistently associated with better metabolic and inflammatory profiles, which matter in conditions such as PCOS and in overall reproductive health. Nuts. Among nuts, walnuts stand out because they have some of the most direct human evidence in male reproductive health. In a randomized dietary trial, adding walnuts to a Western-style diet improved sperm vitality, motility, and morphology. A 2023 systematic review and meta-analysis also concluded that regular nut consumption improves semen quality parameters in healthy males. That does not mean walnuts cure male infertility, but it does mean nuts are one of the few whole foods with direct trial data in this area. More broadly, nuts fit the Mediterranean-style pattern associated with better fertility-related outcomes. So the practical food takeaway is this: more berries, more citrus, more leafy greens, more cruciferous vegetables, and a sensible regular intake of nuts, especially walnuts, as part of an overall healthy diet. The reproductive system tends to benefit when the whole metabolic environment is healthier. Part 5. Ancient healing traditions and what they still offer. Ancient medical systems paid close attention to reproduction long before modern endocrinology existed. Ayurveda and traditional Chinese medicine both approach reproductive health as part of a wider whole-body balance involving diet, daily routine, stress, circulation, and energy regulation. NCCIH describes Ayurveda as one of the world's oldest medical systems and notes that it uses a holistic approach combining products, diet, exercise, and lifestyle. NCCIH describes TCM as a tradition that has evolved over thousands of years and that uses physical, psychological, and herbal approaches. There is something valuable in that broader view. It reminds us that reproductive health is affected by sleep, stress, movement, food quality, body weight, and how people live day to day. That part of the ancient message remains useful, but the evidence for specific traditional herbal products is much more mixed, and safety matters. NCCIH warns that some Ayurvedic products may contain harmful metals, and some Chinese herbal products have been contaminated or otherwise caused serious side effects. So the balanced position is this: learn from the lifestyle wisdom, but do not romanticize. The remedy's ancient traditions may offer insight into rhythm, moderation, stress, and holistic care, but modern evidence and safety standards still matter, especially for infertility, pregnancy, hormone disorders, and cancer. Part 6. The global impact. Reproductive health is one of the clearest mirrors of global inequality. Infertility affects people in all countries, but access to diagnosis and fertility care remains uneven. STIs continue to spread on a massive scale. Cervical cancer remains far deadlier in countries with weaker access to HPV vaccination, screening, and treatment. And when reproductive health includes pregnancy and childbirth, the gap becomes even more painful. WHO estimates that about 260,000 women died during and following pregnancy and childbirth in 2023, with more than 90% of those deaths occurring in low and lower middle income countries, and most of them preventable. WHO's cervical cancer elimination strategy shows what prevention can look like at scale. Vaccinate 90% of girls against HPV by age 15, screen 70% of women by ages 35 and 45, and ensure 90% of women with precancer or invasive cancer receive treatment. That is a powerful reminder that reproductive health is not only personal. It is political, social, economic, and public health driven. So when we talk about supporting the reproductive system, we are not just talking about supplements or hormones. We are talking about pain that gets dismissed, infections that go untreated, cancers that should be preventable, pregnancies that should be safe, and millions of people navigating infertility without enough support. The reproductive system is deeply biological, but its suffering is often shaped by systems far beyond biology. The reproductive system is one of the most intricate systems in the body. It creates gametes, produces hormones, supports sexual development, enables conception, and in women can support pregnancy itself. But it is also vulnerable to inflammation, infection, endocrine disruption, metabolic stress, delayed diagnosis, and inequality in care. So the real natural healing message is not fantasy. It is intelligent support. More whole foods, more vegetables, more antioxidant-rich fruits, more nuts in place of ultra-processed snacks, better sleep, better metabolic health, less smoke, less neglect, earlier care, and more respect for a system that shapes not only fertility, but identity, health, and the continuation of life itself.